So this is what probably 80% of agents do, maybe 99% of agents do in Florida. And it's not your all's fault. It's Florida's fault because they have terrible training. The only reason I know how to do this is because in Texas, a license is 200 hours instead of 63. And I was lucky enough to be at the #2 KW office in the world. And they actually teach very, 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 very in-depth CMAs. Otherwise, I wouldn't know it either. Like, it's not anything Florida taught me. The problem is, not only do you, like, great, you can learn how to do a CMA and you can learn how to value a property. Unfortunately, if you're working with other people that don't, then they're telling their seller one thing and you're representing your buyer with another thing. And you can't, unless you can figure out how to educate the other agent and their seller and your buyer, then it's really, it's an uphill battle. Like, it is brutal. So you can learn how to do this, but it's not going to solve all your problems, because you will find yourself educating. Pick a subdivision. What subdivision you guys working in? So 8 active, 28 pending, and a whole bunch of sold. So just so we have the most current data and less stuff in here, I'm gonna look at the last 30 days of sold. But this is what a lot of agents are gonna do. They're gonna do this, they're gonna scroll to the bottom, and they're gonna say, the homes are selling for $274 a square foot. You guys see this right here? That's your average. That's what a lot of agents are gonna do. Now, this guy that just sold for 423, you just shot him in the foot. This guy that sold for 209, when you listed at 274, hates you. So there's no, you cannot do that. Like, it just doesn't work. If you were in a cookie cutter neighborhood and every house was built the same year, every house was the same square footage, and they all had the same finishings, okay, cool, you can do that. But that doesn't really exist, so you can't do that. So that's why we're here. Let's have some fun with Castle Park. Let's do a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Let's find a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So here, we're gonna use this 16636 Colling Tree. We're gonna use it for 2 reasons. One, well, it's a little bigger than a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but one is the 3, oh, dang, that's a new build. Here, hold on, let's find something a little older. I liked it because the day's on market, but I don't like it because it's new. Yeah, maybe we'll use this one. So we'll use 14628 Secret Harbor. So if you guys want to write that down, if you guys have your laptops, you can play along. 14628 Secret Harbor Drive. And Susie, if you or Nicole can print at least 2 more of those packets and bring it in here, please. Maybe 3, so we have a backup. So we're going to pretend this house is not on the market, and we're going to grab this and, oh yeah, if you or Nicole could print 3 more packets, please. Thank you. So I'll rewind and apologize because I didn't even introduce myself, but I'm Andrew Pepper. I'm an agent here in the office, and I appreciate y'all being here to learn. So, chill here for a second, but let's grab this. This is what we're gonna do. This is gonna be a crash course. I'm literally only here for an hour. I cannot teach you in an hour what you're gonna learn over the next 5, 10, 20 years. But all right, let's grab the basics on this thing. So we're grabbing the year it was built, 2012. We're grabbing the square footage, heated area, 3,879 square feet. Bedrooms and bath. So 5 bed, 3 full bath, 1 half. What else do we need to know?
You look at the rooms, the date it was built, bathrooms, rooms, and what else? They both.
Anything else you guys think would be important?
Other structural things, like if it has a pool or
Yeah.
how many number of garages?
Yep. So let's look at garages. 3-car garage. And let's look at pool. So it does not have a private pool, just a community pool. So let's put no pool. Now, we're not appraisers, but we're going to act like we're appraisers, or we're going to act like we're can at least evaluate a property. So we got the basics. We got the year it was built. We got the square footage. We got the bedrooms, bathrooms, 3-car garage. Now you're going to look at quality and condition. So you can write down quality and condition. Keep that in the back of your mind. Obviously, if it's a fixer-upper versus just wear and tear versus brand new, that's going to be 3 completely different quality and conditions. Now, if you run into, you've got the buyer under contract, you get the appraisal, and you disagree with the appraisal. Does anyone know what an ROV is? So you can ask for a ROV, or reconsideration of value. A couple things can happen there. You can either, depending on which way you're trying to fight it, obviously, you know, sometimes the buyer just wants to be able to buy the home and they don't have the cash to pay above appraisal. So you need it to appraise so the bank will lend. So then you need an ROV, and you're going to go find comps to send to the appraiser to justify the price that he's willing to pay. That way he can still get a loan and still buy the house. You do that if the seller refuses to drop the price and meet you in the middle, or drop to the appraised value, or whatever value that the buyer can afford. So obviously, if you can get them to come down to appraised value, that's awesome. And this market's probably never going to happen. So if you can create a win-win and get them to come halfway, that's great. So Georgia and I put a buyer under contract. It was 0 days on market. We knew we had to go for the kill. So we went in at full price at 725, even though we knew it would probably appraise for like 695 to 700. Appraisal came back at 695, right where we thought. We're 30,000 apart. We negotiated $15,000 down and met in the middle. Buyer got what he wanted. He was happy at 725. We saved him 15 grand. So that's cool. And you got the house. So sometimes it's not, what is the house worth? It's, Mr. Buyer, would you like this home? Okay, cool. I'm going to help you get it. Because it doesn't matter what we offer him if we know it's not going to appraise. Now, you can never know it's not going to appraise. You have to set them up and say, look, it might come back at 725 and you just paid 725 for the house. Because just like what we're doing right now is an opinion of value, and what an appraiser does is truly an opinion of value. So appraisers are human, we're human. You're never going to see everything and you're never going to nail it perfectly. But it will be very, very close. Thank you. Thank you.
So going back to the ROV, if your buyer and seller can't come to an agreement on that, is that when you submit the ROV or ask for an ROV?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, you want to do it quick, right? You want to do it as fast as you can. But yeah, if you know they're not going to agree, then you can either ask the seller to pay for another appraisal, or the buyer can pay for another one, or you can switch lenders. If we have time, you can switch lenders and get it reappraised. We've done that before. We had one where the appraiser like almost died at the appraisal. Like, it was our buyer, and luckily we were able to negotiate like 20,000 down on that one. But like, they were like, well, this isn't a fair appraisal. The guy could barely walk. He was like falling, about to lean against the wall and about to pass out. Like, we thought he was going to die. And we know that it worked in our buyer's interest, but if that was our seller, that would have been terrible. So obviously we would have been like, hey, this dude almost died. We're going to pay for another appraisal. So anyways, you'll see everything. Like, it's crazy. All right, onward. I apologize. I should have put page numbers on here, but so that kind of addresses the majority of what we're doing on pricing theory. If you guys flip to how to price, obviously, if you're doing a listing, you're going to use this for knowing where to list the property, as well as where your buyer should go in offering on a price. Just because the market's hot and you're representing a buyer doesn't mean you have to offer above list price, because if they didn't know what they're doing and they priced it incorrectly, then it doesn't matter. So you always want to run comps. If you're a single agent and you truly have their best interest, you always want to run comps and let them know, hey, Mr. Buyer, this home, even though it's listed at 1.3, you know, 3 months ago, the home was $1.05 million. Right now, since the market's crazy, it's probably at $1.2 million, but it's still not at $1.3 million. So where do you want to offer? They get to decide, but you presented the facts. You said, hey, if I was buying this house, I'd buy it for $1.05 million. However, the market's nuts, so you're probably going to have to offer $1.2 million. Even though it's at $1.3 million, it doesn't matter. Just because it's $1.3 million doesn't mean you have to offer above list price because the market's crazy. It's price strong. So you always want to check the price. So when you pull your comps, try to stay in the immediate neighborhood. Sorry, Zoom people. Where's, oh, you guys, oh, never mind. You have the PDF. Okay, no, I'm not sorry, Zoom people. Yeah, so we're on how to price. So try to stay in the immediate neighborhood. Sometimes you can't do that and you're gonna have to go outside the neighborhood. Then you just wanna stay as close as possible and make sure you're paying attention to the map and or know the area that you're staying in a community that's similar. If you try to price my home, you're gonna get mobile home parks on the north, you know, smaller and bigger properties all around, and then a little HOA small community down south. Like you can't use the area. It just doesn't work. So every property is unique. So this is not a catch-all by any means, but it'll grab like 80% of the homes that you're gonna price. If there's a ton of comps, you definitely wanna look at those that are 20% smaller and 20% larger. So I start my CMA by taking that 3,879 square feet and multiply it by 0.8 and multiply it by 1.2. Now you've got your plus or minus 20% on square footage that you're gonna start with those homes for your comps. If there's still a whole bunch of those, then dial it down to 10 to 15% larger, because then you're looking more like that exact home, right? So if we take 3,879, that's 3,103 on the low side and 4,655 on the high side. So that's going to be our range, ideally, that we want to use for square footage. If you cheat and flip to, you know what? Actually, I'm going to cheat and give you. Oh no, so next. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to skip and get out of myself. All right. 4,655. So plus or minus 20% from whatever home you're looking at. If there's not enough or there's custom built homes, then obviously you're going to have to move into other communities. But stay in the same zip code and ideally in the same school zones and the same quality of home. Natural street boundaries, you know, if you're close to 75, obviously if you're east of 75, you want to stay east of 75. If you start working in Sarasota and people always talk about west of trail, then you want to stay west of trail or east of trail. You don't want to go like big boundaries. You want to stay in a similar area. If you're in the Oaks, you want to stay in the Oaks. It's a huge difference when you're talking, all right, yeah, well, this home's exactly the same and it's in neighborhood XYZ. I don't know what's next to the Oaks, but you know, the Oaks, you're paying $65,000 membership to join. You can't compare it with a neighborhood that doesn't have a membership. So you want to stay similar communities.
What about like on the island? How would you narrow it down on the city, for instance? Like, obviously there's bayfront and gulfront. So would you use all of the island? Or? Sometimes
you have to, and then you have to justify and try to make sense of what is it worth to you on Gulf versus Bay. And that's really hard. I've got one that I just did a CMA on the other day it's mind numbing. I mean, there's some on unique custom properties. Sometimes it's easier to take the risk off you and say, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, we're going to hire an appraiser and just get an appraised value. Now that you're not looking like the bad guy when you take it to them and say, hey, your home's worth $4 million when they thought it was worth $6 million. You got a licensed appraiser. And if they want a second opinion, then get a second appraiser. And if they both come back, they're probably going to come back within, 10% of each other. Now you're still only at 4.4 instead of 6 million. So at least you priced it correctly. So age, this home is a 2012, so it's 9 years old. So we're going to try to stay plus or minus 5 years on age. So this one, we're going to look 07 to 17. If you have to go outside of that, A good rule of thumb, Mark Midyett teaches us in his class, is for $1,000 minimum per year. You know, if it's a newer, $1,000 extra, if it's older, $1,000 less. That just kind of helps make up for a little bit of difference in age of the roof, age of the hot water heater, age. Obviously, if it's a bigger price point, you might adjust that number a little bit, you know. But if you're at an average price point of $300,000 to $400,000 or $200,000 to $400,000, that's a good rule of thumb. And the majority of your homes, unless you specifically focus on a higher price point, the majority of your homes are going to be in that $200,000 to $400,000 range or $300,000 to $500,000 range. So it's not as drastic. Where do we go next? So 07 to 12. I'm going to demolish this sheet so I don't have to keep coming back. All right, so comps, we kind of touched on this. Quality, amenities, condition, you know, you can't compare Country Club with Greenbrook or Summerfield. You got to look at similar neighborhoods. So adjust your comps. This is not a catch-all, and it's a little bit old and probably needs to be updated because this is literally from when I learned this 7 years ago. So it's just a rule of thumb, but golf course view, you can kind of use 10% of the purchase price as a rule of thumb. If you had a golf course view versus no golf course view, if you had a green belt versus no green belt, kind of 5% of purchase price. And then, you know, obviously if you got the huge power lines running down the side of the house, you know, you start to subtract because nobody wants to live next to those. So that, or a busy street, or next to I-75.
Do you think lake view in the back is always better than conservation view?
I think it depends on the buyer, honestly, and it depends on the community. So what I'd say the best way, if it's a newish or newer community where you can find out what the lot premiums were that the builder charged, you can use that to justify and explain your pricing. So we just had a very unique property that went on the market that it was the only one in there that had this view. So it was naturally going to be the most expensive property in there. Well, it's hard to sell that. When you've got comps at 370 and 390, how do I tell somebody this one's worth 440? We go back to the builder when it was built and show that it was an $80,000 lot premium because you've got a 200-degree panoramic view of the water that none of the rest of these have. Well, what about the one right next to you? It's a villa. What about the one that's attached to you? Well, yeah, they don't have this water view. Go stand in their living room and you've got like a 90-degree water view. So it's case by case. So there's no easy answer really. But yeah, if you can find, if it's newish, or if you can find something that's similar to justify the lot premiums, right? But I've got some people that'll come down and they'll be like, oh, I don't want to be on water. Great, that's cheaper, and I've just got to find you something that's not with a water view, right? Because they don't want the gators, so they don't want whatever.
Is there a difference in like view water view country club versus green river view and river view, those types of things?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's where you just have to stay in that neighborhood for your comps, right? And even if you're on Manatee River and you're the first house in versus the second house in, you know, or the first house in versus the third house in, you'll see those. So you got to be careful when you're looking at the comps because the first house has the entire Manatee River. They've got, you know, 180-degree water view. The second house may only have a 90-degree water view. The third house may only have a 60-degree water view as they go down the channel. So you kind of have to mentally adjust for that, you know, and you'll literally do that with each home. Like we'll go in and say, oh man, that view is probably $50,000 inferior, and just take it off the price. I mean, and then there's some people like the one that we did, you know, it was 80 grand for the water view is what the builder charged as a lot premium. All I can do is share that with the potential buyer. They determine what it's worth to them. You know, that's a tough sell. When you have the most expensive home in the neighborhood, that's a really tough sell. Unless somebody sees the value of this gorgeous view where you're standing in your shower and you can see the water, and you're sitting on the toilet and you can see the water, and you're cooking in the kitchen and can see the water. Like, that's tough. But to me, it's worth it. If you told me, hey, you can look at gorgeous for 80 grand, or I can take you across the street and you can look at a retention pond, like, if I get the money, I'm going to spend it. So these are kind of a rule of thumb, right? So you guys, I've got an engineering background, so I get into the weeds too much, but like this condition thing with the updated as far as carpet and updated versus remodeled. I will literally, when I'm pricing a home, go into each individual room and look at carpet versus tile, stainless versus white appliances, like resurfaced pool versus not resurfaced pool, and I'll adjust it for that. However, I'll tell you, it allows you to sell last year, for instance, before COVID, or maybe that was the year before, I guess. We sold on average 21 days faster than the average agent, and we sold on average for 3.5% more than the average agent. So even before COVID, we were selling for 100.5% of list price. So when I'm setting a listing presentation, it's real easy to have a conversation that, you know, hey, Mr. Seller, you may not like what I'm about to tell you, but I'm going to tell you the truth, and we're going to get your home sold like you want. Your home is worth this. You get to determine the price. Just realize if we go above this, we may not sell at all, or it may set longer than it should. If we go below this, it's going to sell like wildfire, but you pick the price. Now, if they give you something obnoxious, then that's when you decide, do I want to try and negotiate that down or just walk away and not take the listing? Let somebody else take it over price and come get them in 6 months when it expires. That's up to you. I've never taken an overpriced listing, and that's why I've never had an expired home. I've had expired land. I'm okay with that. Land is tough to sell. It sits. And 10? No, probably 8. Yeah, probably 8.
Can you reason with them, or you like most of them?
Just show them the facts. I'll sit there, you know, I mean, I would love to go in and have a 45 or 25 or 45-minute listing appointment, but if somebody's really hard-headed, I'll show them the competition, and then I'll show them what recently sold.
When you start showing them average days on market for certain price points, or similar home, basically.
And talk about carrying cost, right? If it's not paid off, you know, do you feel like paying $3,500 a month for the next 6 months, or would you rather be under contract in 3 weeks or less? What's best for you? You know, yeah, you can price it $20,000 higher, but if it takes 6 months longer to sell and it costs you $21,000 to wait that 6 months, does it really make sense to price it $20,000 higher?
One question, you were talking about making adjustments for, based on, you know, the carpet tile, stainless steel versus white appliances. Now, when you look at an appraisal in detail, you'll see that they do like adjustments for like, I don't know, even $5,000 per room. How do you properly give value, I get properly maybe so lightly, but provide value for each one of those differences? So
if they can tell me, hey, this is what I put in, like, hey, I just put in new floors, great, and they pull it and show me. I wish I had a comps for for the listing appointment I'm going to today, but if they can tell me exactly what they spent and they just did it, I'll use those numbers and then subtract it from the value of whatever the comps are. Now, you may not get all of that back, and you need to convey that to them. Hey, we might only get 70, 80% of this back, but take that number of improvements and take 70% of it and tack it on to this home that didn't have it. Or if it has half of the stuff, add that, you know, add that chunk. Like I've got one that we're going to today, like he's got a full house generator, he's got a new barn, he's got, you know, $45,000 worth of impact glass and windows and doors. You know, he just did all this stuff. Now, some people could care less. They want the impact windows and doors. They don't want to pay for the impact windows and doors. So that's a tough sell. If you're on the sell side, if they just did that, that's a tough sell to a buyer when none of the other homes in the neighborhood have it.
So raise the line with overcapitalization. Is it like using the line?
So, I mean, sometimes you have to say, you know, Mr. Seller, you know, you made these great improvements. They made it a lot more enjoyable to live. They didn't necessarily make it more valuable on the resale side. You know, like I just had a guy ask me the other day, hey, we're going to put a pool in. How much will that help me when we get to sell? Do not put a pool in if you plan on selling in less than 5 years, if you think you're going to make money on it. You need to have some enjoyment and eat up some of that loss. And hopefully the home appreciates over the next 5 years to make up for that as well. So, yeah, that's tough. Yeah, I mean, did you enjoy living in it the last 6 years? Okay, great, because that cost you $24,000 or what, you know, I mean, I'll have a candid conversation with them because it is what it is. I mean, I might not be that brutal, but some people I will, because It just is what it is. But if you go into a home and you know the pool needs resurfaced and retiled, I'll tell them up front. Like we just sold one, it expired at 945. I relisted it at 775. That's a tough conversation. The last agent told you your home was worth 945. I'm really sorry that they told you that. Could you show me the comps they used to justify that? Oh yeah, Bobby's house down in the corner. Okay, and then you looked at it, right? Well, Bobby's house had brand new gorgeous ceramic tile floor throughout the entire home. Your home needs, the carpet needs replaced. So we adjust for $20,000. Bobby's house had a brand new pool that was just resurfaced and retiled, and your pool looks like crap. So that's another $15,000 to $20,000. What was the other thing? Oh, it needs a new roof. Concrete tile roof on a 4,000 square foot home, $75,000. So we're at, 115 grand? So 115 grand plus 775 is 890. And they were still overpriced 55 grand. That's crazy. That's why they didn't sell. 945 and 890, you're not even looking at it. So that's a tough conversation, but if they want to sell, and that took 14 months to get them to list it. And thank God in that 14 months, their home appreciated because it was probably worth 725 when we started talking. And I think that's what I told them when we started talking was, in the current market, your home's worth like 725, maybe mid to low 740s. But that's what's fun is you can dial it in and tell somebody the truth. You're going to lose some. I lost one that was, I told him 750. He said, well, all the other agents are telling me 775 to 800. And I didn't get the listing. And 91 days later, he sold it for 749. I mean, you can dial it in. If you dig into it, you can tell them exactly where the market's at today. I mean, it's not.
But is there leeway, is there kind of an agreement of when you list? Let's say, for example, that guy, let's say the other agents maybe says, well, 750 is realistic. Okay, that is the total, the base. Shoot for 775. Can you do that? And then give it like 30 days and say, like, can we do an agreement and say, listen, and after 30 days, if it doesn't, we're relisting it, or we're dropping it 25, like you said, at 749.
In today's market, I would in a heartbeat take that listing at 800 if it showed 750. But we weren't, that was 2 years ago. That was a different market. But yeah, today I would take that in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even care. Like,
but in general, you don't shoot higher and then come down.
Never. Your first 21 days are crucial. You've got,
you go for the price, for the right price.
You've got one shot at making a first impression, and you know what their home's worth today. You don't know what it's going to be worth in 90 days or 30 days. Last year, I don't remember when COVID hit, March, whatever. Like the day before crap hit the fan, nobody knew. But the day before, you knew the home was worth X. You didn't know tomorrow is going to be worth $50,000 less. So, God forbid, something terrible like that happens again. Like, would you rather list it to sell, or do you just want a sign out there to look cute? Like, I don't like putting signs in the yard. I like selling houses.
I know a lot, I mean, the agents that I've dealt with, they're just buying places. Everybody always, when you sell, they always want to shoot like, I never understood it, but they always put it extra 20, let's see what's out there, what comes back, what all of it, and then gradually drop it over it.
So other than price, is there any other reason you wouldn't list with me today?
Price?
Other than price.
Oh.
So tell me what's important to you about listing it for $50,000 more than what it's worth?
I think, for example,
I'm just role playing.
No, fair enough. So for me listing, I'm not in a rush to sell. Place is paid off. So I'm kind of like, well, I'm not in a rush. So let's just see if we get an extra 5 to 10 grand, we spend it on something, whatever, extra hockey or something like that. So I'm just playing around because I don't need to sell it. I just put it out there. I want to sell it. I want to use money for something else. I know I'm going to get 750, but I might get 760. That's extra 10 grand. Take my wife on a cruise, something else, whatever. I'm just curious from what, so that's kind of how I look at it.
Sure. Are you comfortable and confident that I can sell your home?
Yeah.
So would you trust me that if we market it at 750, we're going to have more interested buyers than if we market it at 800? Have you ever gone to an auction?
I that's another way of looking at it, yeah. No one has actually ever said that to me.
So if you're at an auction and somebody says this is $800, but you know it's worth $750, you're gonna wait till they drop the price before you start bidding, right? So sometimes maybe you wait till it drops to $725 before you start bidding. So if we price it too high, Mr. Seller, we may never sell it, or we may sell it for less than what we could have sold it at. If we price it correctly, we might actually sell it for more like you want to. So you pick a price, $750, $775, wherever you want to be, but let's just go ahead and get on the market. What do you choose?
Well, from what you were saying, if I go with you, I would go with 750 or 750.
Perfect, 750. Here you go, sign here. I mean, and run, just get it done. I can't guarantee it, but I can show you my track record and show you that. Yeah, I mean.
The thing is, but so now, humans being humans, they're gonna, they might put in an offer, let's say it's not today's market, let's say we're gonna buy, it's tricky, the market obviously dictates on the pricing, but they might come in at 735, and we're gonna settle at 745, right? They're always like, for the most part, people are always gonna offer lower.
Would you rather price it correctly and hold firm, or price it high and have to come down?
If I'm going with you, I'm gonna price correctly and hold firm.
So the reason a lot of agents price it high and come down is because they're not good negotiators and they care about their money more than they care about yours. So that home that we listed for $775 and sold for $775, we were under contract 3 different times. We were under contract for $775. We were under contract for $800. We kept part of their deposit because they defaulted and walked away. So and then we were under contract again for $775. The average days on market for that home, for a home like that, was 159 days because it was on acreage. We went under contract, multiple offers day 8, multiple offers day 15. I think we ended up, I'd have to look and see how many days. I think we were 40 days on market the third time we went under contract under multiple offers. In those 40 days, there were a lot of offers below $775. So you have to decide, did I do this right? Did the market change? Or am I correct? And we're going to counter at $775. Now, your seller has to be on board with trusting you.
Correct.
If they're not, then they're going to give away the farm. These guys were really close to selling it for like $760. And I said, do you trust me? And they're like, well, yeah, but we don't want to miss out. I said, I don't think they're going to walk away with 15 grand. Let's counter at 775 and see what they say. And we did, and they took it. I mean, you ultimately dictate where it starts and where it ends up. Because if you can't negotiate and know where it's at, then how are they going to know? So you just have to have their best interest. And if the market changes, you have to watch that. It could go up, it could go down. So every time a home sells in that area, let them know, hey, this home just sold. It's probably worth $750 now. So we need to adjust now. That way it's not worth $725 the next time one sells, or if it goes the other way. I'm not really ever going to adjust up if it's sitting there with no offers because it doesn't make sense, but I see a lot of people do it.
Can you track the views that you get? When you list, for example, the person you can track how many people views, correct?
You can use, so yeah, you can see some of it in here. Yeah, this is another cool thing that you can do is like grab your listing and click reverse prospect. And if these 8 clients, agents aren't doing their job and they haven't shown your home, call them and say, hey, Dylan, I noticed that one of your clients favorited, a listing I have down in Inglewood. It's the best deal in the market down there right now. When can we show it to them? Would you like me to meet them there, or can you sell the home? Or send them an email. There's 5 people that favored it and 3 that are maybe interested in it, and then all of these, it at least matched their buyer's criteria. Now, the ones that I really like to look at are the ones that they only have less than 20 matches. Like this one, their buyer's really picky, their agent's really good, and only sent them 13 homes and they're maybe interested in it. That might be your strongest buyer. This guy that received 223 homes, they're getting everything on the market. They're looking at everything. they favored everything probably, you know? So, I mean, maybe not, but odds are, you know? So anyways, I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but yeah, there's a lot of ways. And then if you do like a Zillow agent hub, I know, we're supposed to love and hate Zillow, but if you get not hate, but if you get really good at your marketing, it's fun to go in and see your listing at number one every time. Most hits, most views, most likes versus the top 10 homes are most like yours in the area. That's exciting. Now you can snapshot that and take it in your listing appointment and say, you know, those other agents that say to market your home, look at this. Here's the last 12 listings we've had, and every time we're number one. Oh, here's a 13th, we're number two. Like, that's huge. So, all right, adjust your comps. So pools and spas, we talked about that. Outbuildings. So there's communities that have aircraft hangars. There's communities that have, you know, nice horse barns, et cetera. So adjust up and down for that. And then the other thing, the other big thing is going to be the lot size. So, yes, sir.
How much does the spa spillover add with the pool? $400,000 home.
I like to use on 400 grand. Yeah, on a $400,000 home, I like to use probably like 5 to 10 grand on that.
5 to 10 just for the spa. And what about third car garage?
15 grand.
15.
That's what I use. I mean, it's a rough. It's not. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's what I usually use. Oversized lots and acreage is huge. If every home in there is on a quarter acre and the one you're selling is on a half, you need to go figure out what that extra quarter acre is worth. Or if it's the other way, then you got to adjust down. So make sure you're, you know, close to the same acreage. If one home is on a postage stamp, you know, less than a quarter acre, and the other one's on 3/4 of an acre, or 5 acres, obviously you got to do a land adjustment there. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can look at homes that have land of the same size. Ideally, that's what you want to do, right? If this home is 0.44 acres, well, let's look and see what it was. So this home is on 0.32. So I'm going to go in there and select a quarter to a half acre when I'm doing my search. And if I still have enough comps, that's what I'm going to use. Let me move this. So we were at 56 here. So we were at 56. Now we're going to do this. There may not be a lot of 5 bedrooms in there. So maybe we start out with 4+ and the other criteria. So 4+, 3+, 2007 to 2017. There's no pool. That might be a weird one. So we may have to go in and adjust for pools. So that just took it from 5 to 1 by getting rid of the pool. So you're going to have to adjust for the pool to get comps, which is fine. We'll see if we beat up the 5 with this square footage. So we went from 5 to 4. So let's see how many of these are sold. None of them. So this gets real fun. So you have no comps, but that was in the last 30 days. So we're going to go back 6 months. That's what an appraiser typically is going to attempt to do. Now, what are you going to have to do to those 3 comps that sold 30+ days ago? And is the market increasing or decreasing? It's increasing about 1% a month right now. So you're going to have to look and see when that home sold to today, and then adjust whatever it sold for, you know, about 1%. So yeah, let's go back here for a second. So we're going to take these and we're going to see how much this tightened up our results. So now we dialed in a little bit, right? We were at like 209 to 423. Now we're at 252 to 353. And all 3 of these have pools. So you know you're going to take the value of the pool off of these. So for fun, let's say our range is 252 to 353 minus a pool. How much do you think a pool on one of these homes is going to cost?
80,000. I'd say 60.
On $1 million home?
So 80 on the
So these homes sold for $1.30 million, $1.30 million, and 1.4. So for me, if they have spas, I'd probably estimate at least 125 grand if they have a pool and a spa. If they only have a pool, you know, maybe 10% of purchase price. So 105,000 or 103,000, 104,000, up to 140,000 on that one. And we'll look at it and kind of pick it apart. But so all of these sold in October, November, December. That gets fun because every one of those is a different adjustment, right? So the first one, this is the other thing you can do to really save yourself a lot of time. If you wanted to, you know the market's hot, you know the market's crazy, maybe start with the most expensive one and adjust from that one. Now, ideally, you're gonna go through all three of those, but we don't have time to do that. So the other thing you can do is start with the one that's the closest square footage or the closest in age. So this one was a 2012. So that first one was a 2013 at 7507 Cross Hill. So I'm gonna play with that one. Though, well, you guys pick. Which one would you pick? Because I'm,
The 270 one's gonna be totally different model. New, it's gonna probably have new flooring, new, lots of new features. How would you match it? Blue? No?
yeah, I like the 2013 with the 4,090 square feet because it's the closest in square footage or pretty close in square footage and really close in age. And then we only have to do the 15K adjustment for the garage. I was hesitant to, because the other two had 3-car garages, but you're going to adjust all of them. So we'll pick 7507 Cross Hill. And you would go in and do this with all of these, but. And it doesn't take this long. Like if I was doing this on my own, like I would be done, you know, and you're going to get faster and you're not going to pick it apart unless you really, really have to, but. So ours, the one that we're wanting to sell, has an extra bedroom and one less full bath and one less half bath. So if we go to our little cheat sheet, a full bath on 300K plus is 12 grand. Everybody see that? And there was one extra. So I'm just going to put full bath. And then what else are we? A garage. And then a half bath. So we really only have about a 3K swing on those two because the bathrooms are 18 grand and the garage is 15. So that's not that big of a deal. Now we still have a bedroom, but this other one's bigger. So it'll be interesting to see how it lays out. Now I gotta find the house that we're using. There we go. What's really fun is when you find the house you want and then you go in and there's one picture. That gets exciting. So we got a golf course view. So I'm just keeping notes in my sheet. That way if we have to adjust later. There's little things too, like, and they may both have it, but like just kind of note in your head, like see how the tiles laid on diagonal? It's a little more expensive just because there's more waste. Like when they did it, there were more cuts and more waste. So, you know, if it came down to going a little higher or going a little lower, like on our 775, it really comped at like 775 to 782. And we're going to talk about pricing, which I guess we can just do right now. So under 500, ideally a $20,000 to $25,000 bucket, because what happens when you go online and search? You're typically looking at $25,000 increments. So it does no good to price a home at $499. You just shot your seller in the foot for somebody that's looking at $500,000 to $600,000 homes because they did not see your listing over $1,000. So you have to get very strategic when you're talking to a seller that says, I really want to price at $499, $999. The seller, you're going to miss out on a buyer that's looking at 500 and up by $1. We want your home to get in front of everyone in town. So, yeah, so over $1 million, you ideally want to be in a $100,000 bucket, but you at least want to be in a $50,000 bucket. So this home I'm going to do today, you know, it's $990,000 to $1,040,000 is what I kind of dialed in at. So they need to price at $1 million or $1,050,000. Not $1,040,000, not $990,000, not $1,010,000, not $1,015,000, like a lot of these people do, not $1,025,000, $1 million or $1,050,000. That's it. So, yeah, so pricing. So if you look at this little sheet, like prices that are bad, 100,900, 304,900, 251, $1,015,000. Why? Because there should be $1 million or $1,050,000. If they really insist, okay, cool, go $1,025,000. But 805, stupid. If somebody's got 800 grand to spend, they're going to spend 805. Price it at 800, attract the masses, maybe sell it for more, or price it at 825, and they're going to offer you 805. Don't price it at 805. The pricing is huge. What are these? I'm curious on what this house is priced at. This would be fun. What's that? Yeah, you have it? Stupid. Who does that? 850 or 900 or 800. But why 845? Now somebody's looking at 850 and up. They didn't even see it for 5 grand. So like this one, $1,275,000. That's what it sold for. They listed at $1,325,000. That might have cost their seller money. Why didn't you just price it at $1,300,000? Here's one, $1,095,000. Why? Price it at $1,001,000 or $1,050,000 or $1 million. Why $1,095,000? They sold for $985,000. $945,000. Stupid. Sold for $900,000. Like I can show you over and over and over. Here's one that actually priced decent. $825,000. It sold for $815,000. 3 days on market. Funny how that works. $801,990. Who does that? $800,000 is what you price at home at. Sorry, I might be a little crazy, but this stuff works. Like $823,990. 303 days on market. Sold for $800,000. That home's either $800,000 or $825,000, but it really should be $800,000. $749,900. So for a $100 bill, we missed out on anybody looking at $750 and up. Why? No, it's not pretty. You're shooting yourself. $729,900. What did it sell for? $725. Why didn't you just price it at $725 like you were supposed to? Then you might have sold it for more. Like the stuff works, but it's crazy. If you look at the numbers, like there's a reason we price homes correctly. So that's fun. That's my soapbox. Lord help me. My blood pressure's high.
You talked about the value of things not being exactly what they're worth for what you spent, like the pool. What about the value on a generator that can basically run the whole street if they wanted to? I mean, there's so much value in that versus a pool is recreational. How do you transfer that into the purchase price?
I would probably look and see like how new is it? Like the one I'm going to today, they just put it in. So I'd probably, try to get 80% of the value out of it. Are you going to get it? Probably not, but at least, you might. Now that's where you're going to have your range too, right? So with that, like I did that with like 5 different items, the generator, the horse barn, the whole thing. So I had the low and the high, and then I used that in my range. So that's why I'm at like $990,000 to $1,040,000. And since the market's crazy, unless the guy says, oh yeah, like, I mean, he's gonna pick the price. I'm gonna show him, look, it might sell for 990, and he may say, okay, cool, let's list for $1 million. If it goes multiple offers and sells for more, great. Or he may say, no, I want to test the high side. Let's go for $1,050,000. Cool. Or $1,000,001. You really should be at $100,000 increments above $1 million, but I don't know. And maybe we will. The market's nuts, and there's nothing out there. It's almost 10 acres. So, yeah, I mean, you have that conversation with the seller, right? How soon do you need to sell? Why do you need to sell? Where do you need to go? Like, if they need to sell, obviously you're going to go to the lower side or the middle of the market.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
I got a listing coming up soon. There's really no comps. It's in Inglewood on Minnesota Beach Road, on an acre with a little lake in the back, a small house, and there's no other sales like that. Would it be wise to have them get an appraisal before the listing and come up with a fair value?
I like it. 500, best $500 they'll ever spend.
Right, and he's happy with what, if we can get that price, he knows that it's appraised.
Yeah. And they may get more, they may get less. It's an opinion of value. But I wouldn't list much higher than what it appraises at, because it's a fresh appraisal. This is what it's worth right now, Mr. Seller.
So when you get a contract and you get a bank trying to appraise it at a purchase price, is that new appraiser might try to meet that purchase price?
Yeah, I mean,
You know what I mean?
9 times out of 10, unless the comps are way off, the bank is going to appraise it for exactly what the loan amount is.
I noticed they go like 1,000 over or something, or 2,000 over. I recently sold one in Country Club. We're closing at the end of this month, and I thought it would go for around $375. It's the most basic model. It's gonna be the cheapest one in Country Club. It went to $409. I said, you know what? Your house, let's go for it. Day one, full price, cash, done.
The market's crazy.
And the appraisal came at $390, and he's still buying.
Yeah.
I had a $50 bet on with another agent on one of my deals, but he said it wasn't gonna appraise if it came in on list. But I mean, honestly, the comps were really questionable on it. It was like 5 acres. It was just a really unique property. And so yeah, I got paid $50 yesterday.
It is 100% an opinion of value. Mark Midyet's been doing this, like, Mark, are you watching? 200 years or something? I don't know, a long time. Like, I think 25 plus years. I don't know, a long time. And we had a really difficult listing. We priced it correctly. And this was before COVID went nuts. But we priced it correctly and we got an offer for like 15 grand above list price on a $245,000 home. This is before the market was crazy. And we looked at comps up one side and down the other. And we even had Mark, he was teaching a class and he did adjustments on it. And he's like, there's no way it's going to sell for above 242, I think is what he said. And we were listed at 245. We were under contract at like 260. And my sellers needed to buy. I didn't want them to lose their deposit because they were contingent to sell, but they wouldn't allow, the buyer would not allow a contingency. So I was like, look, we can put an offer in, but if this falls through, like, you are going to potentially lose your deposit if your home doesn't appraise. And this guy's been doing this a long time, and he said it wouldn't appraise. He doesn't think it would go for more than 242. I don't think it's going to go more than like 245 to 248, and you're at 260. So we're 12 grand apart. Like, what are you going to do if it appraises at 248? Well, they're going to have to pay more. Well, they can't. So you're going to have to, it appraised. How? I don't know. Most expensive home in Lake Sarasota or whatever it was called. Most expensive square foot. I would have never in a million ever would have thought it was going to sell, and it did. So
is it wrong to try to test the market a little high if the seller is willing to go with the price offer even still? You know?
it depends on the seller and it depends on you. My goal is to sell their home. And I've sold a lot of homes above list price. The market will not undersell your home. It won't. It just doesn't happen. So I like to price it correctly regardless of the market. If it's a bad market, you're priced right. If it's a good market, you're priced right. If the market shifts, you don't have to shift as much. If you overprice 50 grand and the market shifts down, you're screwed. You're making huge adjustments. So I don't know. I've been saying that for like 5 years now. So I don't know. I mean, that's crazy.
The price increase would be pretty phenomenal.
Buyers, now, this is a note that I have that buyers tend to spend 100 to 102% of what they're comfortable spending. Not 100 to 102% of their approval. So great, you're pre-approved for $400,000, but what are you comfortable with payment-wise, Mr. Buyer? You need to figure out where they really want to buy, because just because they're pre-approved at $400,000 doesn't mean they want to spend $400,000. Sometimes it goes, a lot of times it goes the other way around. And the main reason is because people don't know what they don't know. They don't know the market. They get down here, they find out, oh, they can't find what they want. And if they have the money to spend more, they will. Yeah. We had a buyer that said, we're buying under 500, and then he bought a house for like 710. We had a lady that said she wasn't buying a condo for more than 240. I found her an off-market FSBO, got all the paperwork straight, put in an offer, and then the next day she bought a $440,000 condo instead. I mean, thank God we sold the condo to her. But like, how do you double what you're? I mean, people are going to change their minds. So, emotion makes them act. So I sincerely apologize, but it is 2:30, and I hope you guys got some value out of this. But we can, anybody, like, you literally go through each one of these and make adjustments to what the difference is, right? So like this one has a gorgeous water view. So you're going to adjust for water view. What did the one we were looking at was this one. Yeah, so this one's a golf course, but you're looking into the side of a house. It's not really a golf course. Yeah, I mean, they're looking into the side of that pool. So I'm gonna do an adjustment down for that, you know?
If you're doing 5 comps like that, and then you get all of each one adjusted to where you take your other house that you're comping, and you take the average price of all 5 of them, basically.
Yeah. And then you can go like in a normal market, I would do that and then go like plus or minus whatever the bucket is, right? Whatever the bucket is for the price range. And that's my range. Now in this market, if it's gorgeous and I'm confident about where I'm competent, then I'm going to start at the high side of the range because the market's crazy, at least for 14 days.
The square footage difference, you literally just multiply $40 a square foot, like it says on the.
So that's old. So that's probably needs, tweaked because I mean, you can't build. But yeah, you could do a small, those are for like small adjustments, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got an 1858 square foot home, I'm about to list, and some of the comps are like 2,100 square feet, all the things different.
Yeah, you can do 0.01% of the price of the home times the square footage is a good like rough estimate to get your dollar for the difference. If that one was 4,000 square feet and this one's 3,800, taking that 200 square feet times that number. Now, if it's a luxury home, you may have to take that times $75 to $150 a square foot.
It's a typical 400,000-ish. Nice neighborhood, Stony Brook and Venice, Center Road, River Road.
I wish we had gotten further.
What's the allowance for extra bedroom and
I'm going to do a square footage adjustment on that.
Okay.
Because that other one has more square footage, but one less bedroom. So there might be a place that you can throw a closet and have a bedroom. Yeah. So it's kind of you really have to look at each home, and it's not going to be, 100% every time, but it's going to be very, very close. Thanks guys for joining us on Zoom.
Thank you, Andrew.
It was really good.
Thank you.